Hello English 140, Anthony here. As George Perec so carefully calculated, if you were to pull apart all the books kept in the Bibliothèque Nationale, you would cover the entire island of St. Helena. This begs the question, what is the largest novel ever written, and how much land would it encompass? You might be surprised, but it's probably not by anyone you've heard of before. Going by the online handle Aura Channeler Chris, his fan fiction called The Subspace Emissary World's Conquest spans over 10,000 pages and 4 million words long. Today, it is the longest novel ever written, and is still being continued today. If you were to print it single-spaced on standard US computer paper, it would only cover up about 0.2 acres of land, or about the standard plot of a suburban household in the United States.
That's not a lot of space, considering that with over 107 billion people ever living, and nearly 5,000 years of civilization, no one has even come close to writing something bigger than that. But what exactly is space? Not talking about the void as Perec describes, but rather what there is around or inside of it. Space as inventory, an invention, a uniquely human manufactured concept. We're not talking about this kind of space, but we're talking about space. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines space as the dimensions of height, depth, and width, which within all things exist and move. Seems pretty concise to me. The Latin derivative of the word space is spatium, which means a room or area.
However, history is not always so clear. Many of the earliest interpretations of space are also defined as time, or a duration of time. The Latin word intervallum, translated into modern English, is a duration of time, yet it is also used synonymously with spatium. The Bible and many other ancient texts point towards ancient cultures viewing space and time as intertwined, and they imply one cannot be considered without the other. But why? Clearly, space is space and time is time. They are separate concepts. Why would it take so long for civilized humanity to create these distinctions? Perhaps because there was no need, and the grammatical context of the Latin implied which concept they were referring to.
Or were ancient civilizations the first cosmologists to discover the physics of space-time? Probably not, but they were onto something. They understood that the idea of a dimensional space, such as a nation or room, is limited to or even defined by the time it existed. You cannot consider space without time, because spaces can change, but nothing can change the space that existed in a given time. Or can you? For example, did space and time exist before humans invented the concept? If the ideas of space and time were never considered, never thought of, and we had no words for them, would that mean space and time never existed? Not really. Just because we haven't thought of or discovered something doesn't negate its existence. Space uniquely does not have to do anything to exist. Neither does time. It just is. You could even argue the lack of something existing is a space, meaning anytime something does exist, space also has to exist. And conversely, anything that doesn't exist implies space exists. But it's getting a little hot in here. How about we move to a different space?
How much time does it take to get to space? Outer space is much closer than we think it is. If you were to drive 60 miles an hour straight up, it would only take 1 hour to leave Earth's atmosphere. That's shorter than a drive to Milwaukee. More interestingly, the average human will walk and drive a combined 920,000 miles in a lifetime. That's enough distance to go around the Earth 39 times. That's enough distance to go around to the moon and back twice. It's safe to assume we move a lot as humans, into new areas and new spaces. But at what point does a space you are currently in become your own? In a study, British people claimed it takes an average of 17 months and 12 days for a house to become a home.
Does something magical or legal occur at the 17-month period in which people just then start to consider their house a home? Perec asks a similar question. What does it mean to live in a room? Is it to live in a place, to take possession of it? As from when does somewhere become truly yours? Perec seems to hint at the idea that space and time are truly intertwined, that we actually define space by time.
For example, if James Madison Park was sold by Dane County to a private investor, and that investor built an apartment building there, would it be considered the same space? Certainly there would be more spaces, in the sense that there are now rooms and more divisions, but it's the same total space that was there before, right? Not really. We would no longer call it James Madison Park. James Madison Park is no longer there. Instead, we would say James Madison Park was there, implying it is in the past. It no longer currently exists, but it did exist at one point in time, and it is now a new place, the apartment building.
Spaces change as we create and need them, just as language does. And who's to say that in a few centuries our definition of space won't also change? Space is, at its core, a concept, nothing solidly definable. We can measure, record, look at, and even feel space, but what we are measuring, looking at, and recording is nothing. It's all completely arbitrary, and what is defined as one unit of measurement is different in other places. Physical objects could be argued as something that takes up a defined space and physically exists, but this definition is not solid as it doesn't take into account the area around the object also being a space, and all space is combined as one total space. And if the object is destroyed, what happens to the space it took up? Is it the same space or a new space? Or is it just and always has been space, a space and time?
Perec says, "My spaces are fragile. Time is going to wear them away, to destroy them. Nothing will any longer resemble what was. My memories will betray me. Oblivion will infiltrate my memory. I shall look at a few old yellowing photographs with broken edges without recognizing them. Space melts like sand running through one's fingers. Time bears it away and leaves me only shapeless shreds." He then later states that writing is a way to preserve, to survive, to leave a trace or mark as the void grows. However, time is not on Perec's side. Eventually, it is expected that Perec will be forgotten completely. All the writing may extend his longevity in history, but it's to be expected that as a culture and civilization that's ever growing and changing, at some point in time, whenever it may be, all trace of Perec's writing and existence will fade. Banksy once famously quoted, "You die twice. The first time when you take your last breath, and the second is when somebody says your name for the last time." But before becoming nihilistic, consider this. Whether or not history will remember your name, what you did or what you said, you did exist at some point in time. Math and physics guarantee it. You traveled to new spaces, created new spaces, and even claimed some spaces as your own, big or small. No one and nothing, not even time, can take away your existence on this planet. Nothing can change the fact that you partook on the small blue space we call Earth and forever changed and affected the lives of those around you.
Banksy is then wrong in his assumption of dying twice. So is Perec wrong in his assumption that time will eventually erode all existing things. We do not live or die. We simply exist. It might not even be correct to say that we existed. Space and time do not live or die. Neither do they cease to exist. No matter what happens in the future, a point in time exists in which you partook in. If time travel existed, no one would truly die, as you could just simply go back to a point in time when they were alive. But whether or not time travel exists currently, your existence does remain permanently. In other words, you are immortal, forgotten or not. So as you decide how to spend the rest of your day, know that time and space will catalog everything you do in the universe's own autobiography. Or should I say, the universe's own song, as the word universe literally means one song. Thanks for watching.